It's working.
For those who don't know, Doctor Who, the longest running and arguably most successful sci-fi series ever, is about a rogue Time Lord, an alien with a vast intelligence who adventures through time and space with a number of associates in a ship disguised as a police box. The show has been praised for its writing and production for years. Oh yes, some of this looks cheeseball now, but back in the day, the show has always been impressive for its time. More or less. In fact, the original theme song is considered a herald of the electronic movement in music. But perhaps the most prominent reason the show has been going on for so long is the concept of regeneration, a process that occurs when a Time Lord becomes gravely injured. They have a chance to regenerate every cell in their body. The only problem being that said Time Lord gets a brand new body and personality. This is probably the most brilliant invention of narrative. You can literally keep the story going, even if an actor gets tired of the role, or if the writers just get tired of the character. Snap, a new actor and a new character to take in new directions. But I think Le Carre said it best when he described regeneration. The Doctor is the same person, it's just that parts of his personality get shuffled, increasing and decreasing in proportion to each other. Some Doctors are energetic and whimsical, some are a bit more stern and authoritative. Some are poised and refined, and some are a bit more introverted and cynical. A number of them have been violent, even bordering on malicious, and others refuse to resort to force unless absolutely necessary. But what counts is when you look close enough, you see that each Doctor has a way of expressing what has always been a part of the same person, including the most endearing trait of the Doctor, his sense of adventure and compassion. The Doctor has literally put his life on the line again and again to do what is right. So naturally, such a great series with a fantastic central character, rich mythos, was just begging to be made into a card game. So how is it?
The Cloister Bell.
First, I'd like to apologize to the artist of Ninjago for not mentioning the fantastic illustrations that are featured on the cards. Sometimes you overlook things like this until you are deprived of it. My point being that the Doctor Who card game art consists of photographs from the series, and late 80s computer-generated graphics, which is rubbish considering the card game was released in the mid-90s. As I said before, during the big CCG boom, everyone rushed to make their own version of Magic or Pokemon. But instead of hiring a team of artists to create imaginative and striking new artwork, a lot of people just used stock images from whatever property they were adapting. This is not purely a bad thing, but it is very easy to screw up, and this card game is an example. By the way, I should say that this game was released in 1996, so don't expect any of the newer Doctors. In fact, this game was released just before the 1996 Doctor Who Fox TV movie, which some people may know as a failed attempt to bring Doctor Who to American audiences, and the only on-screen appearance of Paul McGann as the Doctor, who, by the way, did a fantastic job. As such, he just missed the cut of being in this card game, and once again, number 8 can't catch a break. Of course, it's not like number 7 got the best send-off ever. Back to the cards, most of the pictures are just too dark and kind of fuzzy. But I can forgive that compared to all the stuff that is just poorly framed. Check out this gold Dalek card. The creature the card represents is in the background, and all the focus is being drawn onto the third Doctor. Yeah, I guess you could say it's an exciting scene, but I'd like to see more detail on the actual character. Here's Elixir of Life. What the hell am I looking at? Oh, and this is by far the worst offender. The TARDIS. The Doctor's greatest tool and means of travel. Sexy herself. In the snow, 20 miles away from the bloody camera. You couldn't find any better pictures of the TARDIS? Hell, just slap the one from the Tom Baker opening. That one's chock full of airbrushed goodness. Then there are cards that show you an image that is completely out of context. Like the DMAT gun. It shows you the targets of the gun, but not the gun itself. And then there's the Raston attack. Again, you have to know that this is a Raston, and it attacked a bunch of Cybermen in the 5 Doctor special. And the funny thing is that in most cases, the older the image, the better the quality gets. All the black and white cards look great. But here's the coup de grace. These are all 60 cards that came in the starter deck. Notice anything yet?
There seems to be something distinctly wrong. I can feel it.
That's right. I don't have any Doctor cards. Not a one. How do you have a Doctor Who card game and not include any of the Doctors in the starter set? Have you ever heard of Fool's Gold? Of course you haven't, because I just made it up. It's where a starter set comes with a rare card. But it's not really rare because they include it in every starter set they print. That's what should have happened here. Well, I can't in good conscience have a deck of the Doctor Who trading card game without having at least one Doctor. And besides, you'll be surprised how many cards actually rely on having one. I know, an odd concept for the Doctor Who trading card game to be sure. So I went online and bought a Doctor card. I chose the second Doctor, who is probably my favorite of the classics.
You look very nice in that dress, Victoria.
Thank you. Don't you think it's a bit...
A bit short? Oh, I shouldn't worry about that. Look at Jamie's.
But aside from that, like I said before, the older the production image, the better the picture. And frankly, this is probably the best picture of the Doctor, period. Oh, come on! You're not even trying! Plus, I have Ben Jackson and Paulie Lopez, who are both companions of the second Doctor. So... And check out the envelope it came in. All the way from England. Oh, but that's not the best part. Check out the returning address. Mr. John Smith. I see what you did there. Anyway, I guess I should talk about the game. The object is to make your opponent discard all of his time cards. Think of them as life points. Naturally, you use your characters, events, and item cards to attack and defend. But unlike other card games, in Doctor Who, you have 3 fields of play you have to worry about. The past, present, and future time zones. Which is a little odd considering relativity. I mean, what is the present but the past's future and the future's past? And if that's over your head, consider the fact that both Polly and Perry are categorized as present characters, even though they're 20 years apart in appearances. 1960 and 1980, which I think we all consider right now the past. Oh well, I guess that's how a Time Lord sees it.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
At the start of the game, you shuffle and set aside your time cards. 6 for standard play, but you can have more or less, just as long as each player has the same amount. After you draw 7 cards from your main deck, you flip the top time card and place it on the side of the field. The color of your current time card is considered your bonus time zone. Each turn you can only choose one time zone to play in, and you can only play 1 card per turn, unless you choose to play in your bonus time zone. There you can play 2 cards, or you can play 1 card in that time zone and draw another card at the end of your turn. While we're on this subject, cards themselves are categorized by past, present, and future. Green for the past, red for the present, and blue for the future. A character can only be played in their proper time zones. However, there are ways to move from one time zone to another with special cards. Also, you can only have 6 cards in play in one single time zone. Then you have timeless characters, with white borders. This special category is reserved for Time Lords, Cybermen, and Daleks. These guys can be played in any time zone. However, you can only have 5 timeless characters in play at a time. This includes all of your time zones combined.
Yeah, because the universe is really quite small.
Now, characters have 3 numbers of importance. At the top, they have their energy and substance. These are the numbers you look at for a character to combat. But I really didn't understand how they worked at first. The booklet just gives you a list of examples. Then I realized the goal is to overpower your opponent in both categories of energy and substance. You see, I didn't pick that up at first, because earlier the booklet talked about damaging an opponent, and if both the creature's energy and substance were ever brought to 0, it was destroyed. I thought that meant that every time a creature is attacked, it took damage.
It's pure logic.
Logic, my dear Zoe, merely enables one to be wrong with authority.
They mean using an effect to bring down either the energy or substance. This is important since the term comes up in a lot of cards, like Happiness Patrol, that destroys a creature that has taken damage. But there are also ways to boost your character's numbers using support points. Support points are found on the left side of the character card. You can tap or side a character to activate support. Then you can transfer those points to any character in the form of energy or substance. Your choice. And for characters with a support of 2 or higher, you can choose to spend them all on one character or split them up between a number of characters. But be warned, once you side a character, it is out of play until your next turn. And once you attack with a character, that character is sided as well. So if you side all of your characters in a single time zone, that could leave you open for a direct attack. A direct attack happens when either an opponent's cards are all sided, or they have none in play in a specific time zone. If that happens, the player discards his face-up time card and flips over the next one. The color of the new card becomes the new bonus time zone. Luckily for you, a character can't attack or use their abilities on the turn it's set into play, and all of your cards get refreshed at the end of the turn. Now, like most card games, characters have useful abilities, and sometimes you may be required to side that card to activate those abilities. If it has nothing beside it, that means the ability is activated as soon as the card is played, and will remain until the card is removed. But if it has an infinity symbol next to it, that means the card must be sided to activate it. If you ask me, I think they got the concept in reverse. The infinity symbol should be next to the ability that's always on. Characters will also have a race and sometimes subcategory next to their names. Like most card games, these are affected by other cards that specifically target certain races. You should also watch out for cards that have a unique next to their names. This means that there can only be one of these cards in play at a time. Another important concept is the assistants, a very important subcategory that applies to all the Doctor's companions. More on that later. Last and probably least, you have the Watchers. In the card game, they're just balls of energy that have no distinguishing qualities other than their time zones. At the very beginning of the game, each player sets one Watcher in each of their time zones. Consider these guys your pawns. Moving on to your other cards, you have resources. Consider these item cards that you can play in any time zone you want. You can activate their abilities the same way you do a character. You side them to use their ability, and they refresh at the start of your turn. They also count towards your 6-card limit in each time zone, so travel light if you can. Flash cards are event cards that can be played on your turn or your opponent's turn in order to gain advantages. Very simple, do what the card says, and it disappears at the end of the turn. Then you have episode cards. Oh, these are very special. You play them on your opponent, in any time zone you choose. You set the card on their side of the field, but it does not count towards their 6-card limit. While there, the player has to follow the instructions on the card. My deck comes with Ghostlight, which sides all human characters while it's in play, and by the way, is a fantastic episode.
Don't you have things you hate?
I can't stand bound toast. I loathe bus stations, terrible places, full of lost luggage and lost souls.
Now there are 2 ways to get rid, or resolve, an episode. You see the number at the top? Well, you just have to side enough of your characters in the time zone that the episode is played in. If the number of the combined support points is equal or greater to the number on top of the card, then it goes away. Or you can solve any episode problem regardless of numbers by siding a doctor and 2 assistants. And here's the problem with Ghostlights. It permanently sides all the human characters I have in that time zone, which means I can't use my assistant characters to solve the episode. And there's no way I can even make enough support points with my non-human characters I have. The only specific combination I could play in order to get enough points would be with a Doctor, a Gold Dalek, and 2 other cards, or a Draconian. If I played this card against myself, I would be hosed. And that's pretty much the game. As you can see, it's kind of like Magic the Gathering, only with Doctor Who characters, and the added complexity of 2 extra fields. And by complexity, I of course mean tedium. First, the 2 separate numbers for battling seemed a bit unnecessary. And it doesn't help the fact that you have to manage 3 different battlefields and hope you have the right cards for the right time zone. I could see that getting old very fast. Combine the rough game mechanics with the fact that only fans of Doctor Who will know who these characters are, and I could see why this never took off. I mean, I'm a relative newcomer. I started watching when the David Tennant episodes were running on Sci-Fi. I don't know about the Bach, or the Solarans, or the Brothers of Demnos. Maybe if they provided a little flavor text. And this was released in '96. There's nothing stopping me from looking up anything I want now. But the internet back then is not like it is now. Oh, sure, it's not the worst thing I've come across, but it's the Doctor. I'm sure fans at the time wanted more. I mean, could there be a more disappointing and confusing cash-in on a beloved sci-fi franchise? Wait, pardon me. It's another letter from England. Let's see what we have here.